Welcome back. This practice is a 25-minute flow focusing on strength, particularly of the core and the back body. We'll still be moving pretty slowly, but cultivating quite a good amount of strength for those regions. And for this practice, I would love for you to have 2 blocks, a strap, and a blanket in addition to your yoga mat. And as always, just a disclaimer that I will be doing most of the practice with you, but your poses are not going to necessarily look exactly like my poses, and that's okay. Please be guided by what you feel, not by what you think the pose is supposed to look like. So feel free to look at me whenever you need a visual cue or a reminder of what we're doing, but just remember that what you feel is much more important than how it looks. We'll start out on our backs today. So again, if you are on a hard surface, you may want some padding in the form of a blanket. So you lay back, you can let your knees be bent, feet on the ground, and then arms can just go down by your sides, or you could rest them anywhere on your body. And we'll start just by taking a couple deep breaths in through the nose, feeling your lungs fill. Out through the mouth, feeling your whole body deflate. Notice the rise and the fall of the breath and the pace of your inhales and exhales. Take 3 more breaths. And then from here, you can hug both knees towards your chest, taking your hands either to your knees or to your shins. And then just gently rocking your body side to side. And if it works to take happy baby, you can take your knees a little wider, feet facing the ceiling. You can grab the backs of the legs or the outer feet and gently pulling the knees down and apart. If it feels good to rock a little bit right to left again, you can rock a little right to left. And then releasing the hands from the feet, hug both knees in towards your chest. And then extend just your left leg out in front of you. Bring your heel all the way to the ground. And as you bring your heel to the ground, you might feel your low back arch a little bit more, your pelvis slightly tilt forward. And take another breath in. And with your exhale, switch to the other side. Let your left knee come in towards your belly, right leg extend out. Take a couple breaths here. Again, as you reach through your right heel, you'll probably feel a little gap between your low back and the ground as your spine naturally arches. Another breath in. And then exhale to switch to the other side. Inhale here, lengthening your left leg. And then exhaling to switch. Inhale, find length. Exhale to switch. Inhale again. Exhale, switch. One more breath in. Exhale, both knees in towards your chest. And then one more little squeeze the knees in as you rock right to left. And then set your feet on the ground, knees still bent. And we'll take a couple little pelvic tilts. So you take your hands to your hips, and that might help you feel what's happening in your pelvis. We'll rock the pelvis forward, so curling the tailbone down, feeling your low spine arch a little bit more, and your belly relax. And then tilt your pelvis back. So hip points kind of draw towards your face, tailbone points up, and low belly might slightly engage as your low back flattens. And do that a couple more times, tilting your pelvis forward, tailbone curling down, low back arching. And then tilting your pelvis lightly back, low belly engages, low back flattens, tailbone curls upward. One more round. Tilting forward, arching the low spine, and then tilting back, slightly flattening the low spine. And then keeping that backward tilt of the pelvis, the low spine pressing towards the ground. Imagine the line of muscle vertically from pubic bone to low ribs and engage that just a little bit more. You might feel your belly push out a little bit, but I don't want it to be pushed out too much, just a little bit of engagement. And then imagine the muscles that go horizontally across your belly, connecting, among other things, your hip points. And then engage those muscles, those horizontal abdominals, as you attempt to pull your hip points towards each other. When you do that, you might feel your belly draw in a little bit, low back flatten even more. So keeping that for a couple more breaths. If you feel constricted in your breath, try to bring your breath up a little higher into your ribs and lungs. Belly might move a little as you breathe, but try to keep it pretty strongly engaged. And then let that go. Let your belly totally relax. You'll probably feel your low back arch a little bit away from the ground again. And then we'll try the same thing one more time. Pubic bone and low ribs draw towards each other as your pelvis tilts back. Low back presses down. Vertical abdominals engage lightly. And then add to that your horizontal abs, attempting to pull your hip points towards each other. And sometimes it's helpful to take your hands or fingertips to the muscles right inside or towards the middle of your hip points and just tap around and see if you can feel your muscles ignited. And then you can reach your hands towards the sky. So keeping that belly engagement, reach your hands towards the sky, palms facing each other. And then allow your hands to reach just a little bit further so your upper back and shoulder blades get a little wider here. Feet lightly pressed down. Pubic bone draws towards low ribs. Hip points draw towards each other. And then let that go. We'll take a bridge pose next. So walking your feet maybe just a little bit further towards the hips. Pressing your feet down. Bend your elbows as you press your upper arms down. And then lift your hips towards the sky. As you lift your hips, feel free to adjust your feet to a more stable position, maybe a little further forward, a little further back, a little wider, a little narrower. And then let your shoulder blades walk a little bit more towards each other, so feeling your collarbones widen. Take another couple breaths here. Upper arms still pressing down, shoulder blades drawing towards each other. Feet, especially heels, pressing down and away from each other. Belly can be really relaxed here. Glutes and back body are going to be strong. And then slowly lower down to the ground. As you lower your hips, let your shoulder blades widen again. Take a couple breaths. Hands can just rest on your belly. And then we'll come back to that abdominal engagement, but we're going to add a layer. So lifting your feet off the ground, shins parallel to the ground and parallel to each other. Thighs more or less straight up and down, perpendicular. And then again, imagine those muscles that connect low ribs to pubic bone. Ignite those muscles, your vertical abs, your six pack. And then add to that your horizontal abs, your transversus abdominis, your corset muscles, as you attempt to pull your hip points towards each other. So again, I don't want you to feel like your belly is pushed up too high here. I want you to feel like it's kind of pulling in, containing everything behind it, all of those organs. So firm through your belly, front and sides. And if it helps, take your fingertips and kind of tap around the muscles to the side of your belly. And then reach your hands towards the sky again, keeping that belly engagement. Low back pressing towards the ground, hip points drawing towards each other, hands reaching up towards the sky with palms facing each other. And then if you notice that your legs are super stiff here, try to soften them, give them a little jiggle, let them relax so that it's mostly belly and core engagement. Okay, and then let that go. Okay, take your feet to the ground, arms down by your sides. Take a couple breaths, let your belly totally relax. And then we'll come back to bridge pose, but again, adding a layer here. So you can take your strap, make sure that it's in a loop, and then slide your legs into the looped strap. Set the strap up so that when you press your knees apart, your thighs are about hips distance apart, or maybe a tiny bit wider. And then same setup as before, feet pressed down, upper arms pressed down with your elbows bent. And even before you lift your hips, you can sneak your shoulder blades a little closer to each other. And then lifting the hips up as you press your knees or thighs apart. So in this variation, I'm hoping that you feel a little bit more strength in your outer butt muscles as the knees press apart. Feet can still press down and apart as well, but I want you to really feel the resistance of the strap as you press the legs outward. And then you can give a little light tuck of the chin, press the back of the head down a little bit as well. So feet, upper arms, back of head all pressed down. Shoulder blades draw towards each other as collarbones widen. And then as the thighs press apart, outer hips are strong. Take one more inhale. And then as you exhale, come all the way back down. Strap can slide to the side. And we'll take one more belly engagement here. So lifting your feet up, shins parallel to the ground, thighs perpendicular. And then right away, you'll probably feel some belly engagement, but let's make it a little more intentional as you pull pubic bone and low ribs towards each other. Low back starts to flatten. And then hip points draw towards each other. Belly pulls in its engagement, and low back pushes even more towards the ground. Add to that, reaching the hands towards the sky, palms facing each other. For me, that just makes it a little easier to feel the kind of hollowing or engagement of the front of the body. And then if you notice that your legs are really stiff or your hip flexors are doing a lot of the work, give your legs a little jiggle. And then release your feet down to the ground, arms down to the ground. Take another couple breaths. And then one more bridge pose with the strap. So taking the strap back around the thighs, tightened such that when you press the knees apart, the thighs are still about hips distance apart. And then feet and upper arms press down, legs press out into the strap as you lift up. Shoulder blades draw towards each other a little bit. And then chin can lightly tuck, so just lengthening the back of the neck somewhat. Press lightly down through the back of the head. So the back of the neck and upper back are slightly engaged. And take one more big breath into your chest. And exhale, release back down. And then strap can again slide to the side. And then drawing your knees towards your chest, you can roll over to one side, make your way upright. And we'll come to hands and knees. You can keep your blanket under your knees for more support or padding if you need. And then come to tabletop. So with hands and knees on the mat, taking some circles here with your hips, ribs, and shoulders. And if it feels good, you could even take some cat-cow cycles, rounding and arching your spine. And then from here, we'll come into another little belly engagement exercise. So this time it'll be a little bit more challenging because we have gravity working against us, but we'll do what we can. So from here, stepping your left foot back, everything else stays the same, hands pushing actively down into the mat, belly slightly engaged, hips stay square to the ground. And then see if you can find a little bit of that belly engagement that we found on our backs, pubic bone to low ribs, hip points towards each other. It'll be more subtle here, but see if you can still feel a little bit of that. And then lifting your right hand, take the right thumb against your sternum in a half prayer pose. Give a little nudge up. Upper back is wide, belly still strong. And then release your hand and your knee back to the ground, one to the other side. Right leg lengthens back. Pausing here for a moment, making sure your spine is still nice and straight. Hands are still pushing actively down and apart. And then low belly engages, pulling pubic bone to low ribs. Hip points draw towards each other. And then lifting your left hand, take your thumb against your heart, half prayer pose. Give just a little nudge up into your chest. So back body elevates or gets a little wider here. And then hand and knee come back to the ground. One more time to each side. Left leg lengthens back. Low belly engages, knitting or pulling pubic bone to low ribs. And then hip points towards each other. Once you feel that, lift the right hand to heart in half prayer. And then hand and knee come back down to the mat. Same thing, other side. Right leg lengthens. Find that belly engagement. Vertical abs, pull pubic bone to low ribs. Horizontal abs, pull hip points towards each other. And then left hand comes up against your heart in half prayer pose. Right hand still actively pushing down. Left thumb just nudges up into your heart. And then hand and knee back down. You can take a circle with your hips to the right and to the left. And then coming back into child's pose, taking the big toes together, knees apart. Hips sink over your heels as your hands reach forward. And then again, making sure that your head rests on something here. So if it doesn't easily reach the ground, you can rest your head on a block or folded blanket. Let your elbows relax. And take another 3 breaths. And then from here, we'll come into a down dog. So setting up with hands a little wider than shoulders. And tuck your toes, lift your hips up and back. And then if you've had a blanket on your mat, you can slide that out of the way. Take a couple breaths in your down dog. Knees can be pretty soft. As the hands push the floor away, hips lift up. And then if it feels good to start to straighten the legs, you can, but they certainly don't need to be straight. Just try to bring a little bit more weight towards your heels. And then from here, we'll pull forward to plank pose. Shoulders shift over the wrists. Feet might wiggle back a little bit. And then once you get there, you can lower your knees to the ground. It's a little bit more work for the core muscles, more than in a tabletop. With knees further back, belly will have to engage a little bit more. See if you can still find a little bit of that tilt of pubic bone to low ribs, hip points towards each other. And then from there, we'll lift back to down dog again. And take a breath. And then come forward again to plank. Lower the knees down, plank. Find that belly engagement. Hands press firmly down and apart. And then again, lift your hips back to down dog. And then once more, pulling forward, plank pose. Lower your knees down. Keep your heart reaching forward and crown of the head reaching forward. And keep your spine as straight as you can as you lower all the way down to your belly. Once you're down, untuck your toes, walk your feet back a little bit further. And then take your arms down along your sides, hands a little wider than your yoga mat, palms on the ground. From here, feet can stay down. Pubic bone is going to press into the ground, so your butt can probably, you might feel your butt engage here. And then lift your chest, neck, and head into a little bit of a back bend, half locust pose. And then fingertips can stay down, palms can stay down, or your hands can lift, but keep your hands pretty low to the ground so that you can really feel that drawing back and together of the shoulder blades, not pinching to get together, but just pulling lightly towards each other. And then release back down. Turn your cheek to one side, take a couple breaths. And then lift back up again, half locust pose. Lifting your chest, neck, and head. Shoulder blades draw lightly towards each other, firming onto the back. Glutes are engaged as you press the pubic bone down, lengthening through the legs. Tops of the feet might even lightly press down. And then release back down. Turn your cheek to the other side. Take a couple breaths. And then once more, lifting your chest. Crown of the head reaches forward and up. Shoulder blades draw lightly towards each other. Pubic bone presses down. Try to feel your tailbone lengthen towards your heel. So your low back is a little arched, but it's also long. Most of the work in this pose coming from the mid and upper back. And then release back down. You can take your hands alongside your ribs. Press your hands down as you lift back into a child's pose. As you get back to child's pose, make sure that your head can rest either on the ground, your hands, a block, a folded blanket. Make sure your upper back and shoulders can relax. And take 5 more breaths. And then from here, you can come up to a seat and shift so that your legs are forward. And then we'll bend the right knee. Keep your left leg straight. Step your right foot across your left leg. And then lift your chest up. And if that doesn't feel quite right for the legs, you can also have a little more space between your left foot and your right foot and your left hip. Lift your chest up, broaden the collarbones. And then start to twist a little bit towards your right side. So as you twist, you can hold the right knee with your left hand. Right hand can come sort of behind you at a little bit of an angle. Turning your chest towards the right side. And if it creates a little more space for you, you can also step your right foot to the right of your left leg. So giving yourself a little bit more space here to turn. And then untwist. You can lengthen both legs back out again. Give them a little shaky shake. And then same thing other side, bending your left knee. You can step your left foot across your right leg. And however high it comes, might be by the knee, might be by the outer thigh. Give a lift of the chest. Holding the left leg with the right hand. Left hand can come behind you a little bit of an angle as you start to rotate towards your left. And then again, if it creates more space, if it feels more comfortable, you can step your left foot to the left of your right leg. Either way, just trying to go for a length in the spine and a twist of the vertebrae and ribs. And then back through the center, you can extend both legs, give a little shake out. And then we'll come onto our backs again for our last shape, giving a moment to rest. So you can take your blanket back to the mat if you want more padding here. And as you come back, you may want blocks for a little more support. We'll take the soles of the feet together and the knees wide. And you might not need blocks. This might feel fine, but if you want a little more support for your inner thighs, you can take your blocks underneath your outer thighs and then let them just be held there. And then rest one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. Let your eyes close and let your belly totally relax. We've done a lot of belly engagement today in this practice, so see if you can now invite your belly to just relax. Notice the pace of your breath. Notice the width and the depth of your breath. And as you settle in here, see if you can notice just one thing in your body that feels really good. Take about 8 more breaths here. And then when you're ready, you can move the blocks to the side if they've been there. Help your knees towards each other. And then stretch your legs long, reach your arms up overhead. And take a big breath in. And a big exhale. Once more, inhale. And exhale. Bending the knees again. And roll over to one side. And make your way up to a seat. And bring both hands to rest on your heart. Take a full breath in through your nose. Breathe it back out. Exhale. Once more again, inhaling fully. Exhaling fully. Bowing your head down to your heart. Acknowledging your efforts. Acknowledging your strength. And then letting your hands fall away, your eyes open. Thank you so much for being here, sharing this practice. Take good care of yourself. Rest easy.